Weird myths and bizarre folklore inspired many of the games we love. Keep watching to find out how. Folklore is made up of the stories and traditions passed down through countless generations. Over time, these become the well-known fairy tales, the lessons we should heed, and even the explanations for the monsters hiding under the bed. Like all stories, they change and evolve over time. And now they're a crucial part of a new type of storytelling: video games. And in this video, we thought we'd explore the origin of some of the weirdest folklore-inspired concepts we see in games. And before we take you on a journey through the mythic underbelly of our favorite hobby, don't forget to subscribe to Logitech G and hit the notification bell so you never miss when another video lands. From screaming roots to old hags in chicken leg houses, here are 6 of the weirdest folk tales hiding in your favorite games. Let's start somewhere natural, with a root. The mandrake is a real plant with hallucinogenic and narcotic qualities. The unusual shape of the root, which often resembles a tiny figure, meant it was often associated with magic. People believed that when pulled from the ground, the root would scream and any unfortunate soul who heard it would go mad, die, or a combination of the two. You might be most familiar with the idea of mandrakes thanks to the Harry Potter series, but these bad bulbs have been recorded back in medieval herbology texts, in which they're recommended for all sorts of ailments and aches. And we see them a lot in games. If you do manage to uproot a mandrake and don't starve, for instance, then it does act as a healing item. Unless you pull it up at night, in which case it follows you around hollering. But how did these things come to life, you ask? According to various medieval bestiaries, it grows from the bodily fluids dripping from a person hung at the gallows. And when people did find them, they'd use animals to pull up the roots, just to be on the safe side. Either way, if you're looking for an unusual lunchtime snack, searching under a noose is the way to go. Or, if you're playing The Witcher 3, just pop to the herbologist hut instead. Much easier.
Greetings. What do you sell?
Herbs, young lad. I've all sorts gathered near about. You'd be surprised what useful plants grow by the roadside.
Not that surprised, actually.
We couldn't do a list like this without diving into some Nordic folklore. So why not go for the thing that's the heart of it all? Yggdrasil.
Yggdrasil. Tenging hinna nýju heima. Gullfallegur.
This is an immense tree that connects all of the 9 worlds, where gods meet daily for council and great roots house Midgard, or Earth. And references to this legend have appeared in loads of games, from Skyrim to Final Fantasy to Dragon Quest.
So this is the heart of Yggdrasil. It's strange. I feel like I've been here before.
Amongst these roots of the World Tree lives another video game favourite, the Nidhogg. This serpent gnaws on the bottom of Yggdrasil and is said to eat those who murder, break oaths, or commit adultery. So, varying degrees of bad behaviour then. The excellent fencing game of the same name features the beast at the end of all the levels, as your hard-earned reward for victory is to be munched by the giant worm. You did commit murder, after all. It's not the only beast to roam the giant tree either. There's an eagle that flies amongst the branches and a squirrel that scurries up the trunk, delivering insults between the bird and the snake. There's no shade-throwing Nordic squirrel in Jotun, sadly, but we do meet other fascinating creatures as hero Thora makes her way through the Tree of Life. There are 4 stags that nibble on the leaves, and it's suggested that their never-ending gnawing hints at the mortality of Yggdrasil, and therefore the world. But it's probably best not to think too hard about it. Ooh, look, pretty squirrel.
Ber ratatuskur orð veðurfölnis, niður til ormsins Nidhoggs.
Witches have been a staple of folklore for centuries. Pick up any book on fairy tales and you'll soon find yourself menaced by hags and crones. And there's one specific witch who's made numerous appearances in games. Baba Yaga isn't any old sorceress. You'll see this staple of Slavic folklore gliding through the air, not on a broom, but riding in a pestle and mortar. Or you might come across her house that stands on 2 huge chicken legs. Her teeth are made of iron and her nose so long it touches the ceiling when she sleeps. And if you're a lost child, she'll either eat you or help you out in a long, convoluted way that will likely scar you for life. As fearsome as Baba Yaga seems, she isn't just an evil hag. She often appears as a Mother Nature figure. In Rise of the Tomb Raider's Temple of the Witch DLC, Lara actually confronts Baba Yaga, spindly house and all. And much like the myths, she's not as bad as she first seems. She's also one of the mythical beings you can play as in Smite, and she appears in Castlevania Lords of Shadow.
Lost your way? Oh, lost your way? Master told Baba you would come.
Even the witches of Crookback Bog in The Witcher 3 owe a debt to old Baba. And in some tales, there are 3 Baba Yagas who are often depicted as sisters. Still not sure if she's good or evil? That's kind of the point. She can be gentle and kind sometimes, but harsh and unforgiving at others, exactly like the natural world she often represents.
We shall forgive you this transgression, for you've done well. Your children are plump as piglets, sweet as caramel.
Let's move on to something a little cuddlier, the Wolpatinga. These mashups of woodland critters are often interchangeable with their American cousin, the jackalope. But unlike those, which are basically rabbits with antlers, the Wolpatinga has such fun additions as pheasant wings, visible fangs, and sometimes even duck feet. To catch a live one though, you'd have the best luck as a beautiful woman, as Wolpertingers are attracted to good-looking ladies. And weather permitting, it's best to expose your breast. Except, of course, that they don't exist. The Wolpertinger is actually the creation of mischievous Bavarian taxidermists, intent on confusing hapless tourists. But don't worry, they still exist in a surprising number of games. They're an obtainable pet in World of Warcraft and Path of Exile. And in Don't Starve, all the rabbits have twirly antlers, which suggests they're part of that same pretend family. And while Wolpertingers have their origins in German folklore, the jackalope was popularized through a pair of brothers in Wyoming. They claim to either have hunted or taxidermied the first one. And the legend is now so popular in their hometown, they have an annual festival celebrating the creatures each June. Sadly, we've missed it, but next year we'll make sure to wish our nearest and dearest a happy Jackalope Day. There had to be at least one Japanese entry on this list, as it's home to some seriously chilling folklore, and one that's especially horrifying is the Futakuchi-onna. These are seemingly normal women, whose skulls split at the back of their neck, revealing a second mouth lined with jagged teeth. Unfortunately, if you meet one, it'll be too late by the time you find this out, as their demonic maw is hidden beneath their hair. The story goes that these are the wives of stingy men who refuse to let them eat. They become so hungry a second mouth grows to demand food and hurl insults, which is unhelpful since it's literally another mouth to feed. Another version says that women who starve their stepchildren but let their biological ones live will become haunted by the lost spirits who form the second mouth. Sometimes it's an unhealed axe wound. Ow. The Pokemon Mawile is said to be based on a Futakuchi-onna catching creatures off guard with its hidden maw. Similarly, Philia from Skullgirls was once a normal girl who now has a parasite living in her hair, which greatly resembles a legendary yokai. On the plus side, it makes her great at fighting, and at least she'll always have someone to talk to.
I hate split.
The Basilisk and cockatrices have been staples of many a fantasy fight, but they're not always represented to the full extent of their weird and wonderful glory. Unlike the serpentine monster we often see, a basilisk or cockatrice has the body and head of a rooster, tail of a serpent, and wings of a dragon. Sometimes the feet of a chicken too. But we're usually too busy screaming at their faces to check out their feet. So what makes them two separate beasts? Well, a basilisk is the egg of a rooster incubated by a toad, while a cockatrice is the egg of a toad that is incubated by a rooster. A clear and simple distinction. They can both petrify with one glance and, according to some medieval bestiaries, produce poisonous gas that kills anything around them, including the innocent plants that happen to be growing nearby. And that is pretty much the attack of the cockatrice in Dragon's Dogma, who breathes a putrid cloud which will stop you in your tracks. And we see both versions of the monster in The Witcher, although the games state that the petrification is actually a myth, which is handy. Where does this myth come from? That's trickier to determine, but it's possibly from Egyptian folk tales. The eggs of the ibis bird were regularly destroyed for fear that the venom of the snakes they consumed would cause hybrid creatures to hatch. Other sources claim the beast was inspired by the king cobra. Either way, we're happy to be in a world where it's all a myth, and a lizard chicken isn't going to turn us to stone if we glance in the wrong direction. So that was a dive into the dark and endless pool of weird folklore. Is there a myth or legend you love that's turned up in your favorite games? If so, let us know in the comments, and give this video a like if you learned anything new. For more videos all about games and beyond, subscribe to Logitech G and hit the notification bell so you never miss when another video lands.